Hey, I'm McKay. Today's video is an unboxing and first impressions of my first ever vintage Burberry trench coat. I make videos about minimalism, fashion education, and finding your style as a normal person. This trench coat has been on my wish list for such a long time, and I'm so excited to wear it for spring. I want to talk about why I decided to get it and tips for finding your own. I was beyond excited when it was delivered. I can't believe that it's actually here. This is a little bit of a dream come true. I know that they are relatively affordable, but I've had my eye on this for a while and I finally found one that ticks all the boxes, so I'm super excited to get into it. A little about Burberry. Burberry is really the gold standard when it comes to trench coats. They know what they're doing. They've been around since the 1850s in Britain. This is primarily what they make and they have it down. They know outerwear, they do it beautifully, and that's really what got me interested in looking into a vintage piece. Their heritage styles have been around for years and years and years. They keep coming back, which really just shows how classic they are. You can see them in iconic old movies to modern day, and they just age beautifully. They're just classic. The founder of Burberry invented gabardine, which is a lightweight, breathable, and durable weave that really revolutionized outerwear. It's also water resistant. It's so much of a performance fabric and was so important that Burberry gabardine was literally worn by explorers, including to the Arctic Pole, which is incredible and absolutely crazy to think about. So I think that really just speaks to the quality when you have explorers and aviators and soldiers who are wearing your products day in and day out. So it's such a beautiful piece, but it's also incredibly practical, very durable, and there's also a lot of vintage trench coats available on the secondhand market. I paid about $240 with taxes and shipping, which I think is a great value, especially when you think about the cost per wear. I prefer to have a small collection of outerwear. I really don't want to be making many decisions when it comes to outerwear and just running out the door. So I already know that I'm going to get a ton of wear out of this jacket. I got a men's coat in 24 regular, and it comes with a wool liner. I live in the Pacific Northwest, which is a pretty temperate climate. Yes, it's obviously rainy and cloudy, but I should be able to wear this for most of the year. I don't know if this is true, but I've always heard that London and Seattle have really similar weather, so even more reason to buy a trench coat. I don't know the exact year my coat was made, but I can say that it was at least 1999 or earlier. While there are a couple little imperfections here and there, they're easily fixable. It will need some alterations, but again, I don't have an issue with that. Overall, I'm just so impressed with the quality. The stitching is perfect and the details are just impeccable. There's plenty of room for layering and sweaters, which is going to be especially important in the winter. That has been a major problem with a lot of my previous trench coats, is that they're just too fitted and it's really hard to get enough layers underneath. I already know I'm going to wear it with jeans more than anything else. I love the simplicity and effortlessness of a white t-shirt, blue jeans, sneakers, and a trench coat. It's easy, it's clean, it's classic, and I'm definitely going to be wearing that. I also think it looks really nice with a black mini skirt and a sweater. I think the short and longer hemlines really complement each other. I do want to take a step back and explain what led me to replacing my trench coat. I bought a London fog coat a few years ago, and while it has gotten a lot of wear, there are a lot of things about it that don't really fit my lifestyle anymore, and it was somewhat of a prototype. This was one of the first purchases I made when it came to leveling up my wardrobe and really curating something that I loved. So I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for and what I needed and how it was going to fit into my day-to-day life. So the first thing is that it is quite warm toned. You might not be able to tell on camera, but it has this almost like yellowish greenish quality, which I'm not a huge fan of, compared to the Burberry, which is a darker, more neutral brown. It's reading a bit warmer on camera than it is in person, but I really would say that it's not especially warm or especially cool. It really is somewhere in the middle, versus the London fog, which is quite warm. I've come to really prefer oversized long coats. Aside from the aesthetics, it's just too challenging to layer underneath and to wear sweaters. That became really frustrating, especially in the winter when I just need to run out the door and go and grab something. It's just too fitted and isn't working. Honestly, I'm over these dark buttons. They're just a little too loud for me. I'd prefer something that is more monochromatic and blends in seamlessly. The last issue I have with this coat is that I've heard so many people talk about thrifting high quality London fog coats. I'm not sure if the production and quality has just changed over the years like it has with so many other brands, but this just wasn't it for me. The composition is actually very similar to the Burberry, where it's about half cotton, half poly. But for some reason, this has this oddly almost reflective or shiny quality about the fabric that looks really unnatural, and I'm just not a fan of. The real nail in the coffin is that a couple weeks ago, I was putting this away and I noticed that the stitching has come loose. You can already see the belt coming out of the seam. Several of the buttons are starting to come loose because they aren't reinforced well, and I am just over it. I am over this coat. If that wasn't enough, you can see that the belt wasn't cut symmetrically, and this point doesn't line up the way that it should. On to better things. Once I decided to move on, I knew I was looking for a classic to oversized cut in a cooler tone with matching buttons on the longer side, and ideally with a removable liner. So I did try to get pretty specific on what I did and didn't want, and that really helped me narrow things down. A couple tips if you're also looking for a Burberry trench coat. Check the men's section. They're gonna have more listings and they might be more affordable, but keep in mind that you might have to make alterations. You might have to adjust the sleeve length, which is something I'm gonna need to do. You can find coats on Poshmark, Depop, eBay, The RealReal, etc. I ended up going with eBay because they generally had the best prices and the most options, so that worked out for me, but feel free to shop around. You can definitely negotiate. As you're browsing, just add a ton of things to your watch list. It's very likely that the seller is going to send you an offer, and if they don't, feel free to reach out and try to negotiate. eBay did authenticate my coat before shipping it to me, which was really nice, but I'd still recommend doing your own research and checking the photos before you buy. That just means comparing the listing against authentic labels and photos. I used the Vintage Guild to check the labels specifically, which was really helpful. Something to note is that they rebranded from Burberry's to Burberry in 1999. Counterfeiters have really nailed it on the modern ones, so I would look for one that's vintage and has the S. Look at the photos. The stitching should be neat, it shouldn't be overly wrinkled, and it's not always a bad thing if there are some signs of wear. Notice if it looks genuinely old. Does the leather have any signs of wear, aka was it worn by a real person? For me, there's a couple of very small holes in the lining, there's a button that needs to be replaced. The last thing is to ask for photos in natural light if they aren't included on the listing. This can help you get a better sense of the color. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.